Okay. Well, no, give me the paper. Well, no, either you can scan it, email it, or
Hello, Andrew.
drop it off or whatever, okay?
It's peachy. Yeah, we just got another update. That's the same. That was second. Got in our merchant quote. Do what?
Oh, thank you.
We got in our merchant quote.
The old ones?
The ones for utility board?
No. I just have one copy.
Hand them all out.
Okay, yeah. I'll do that. And then,
Like when they're...
yeah. They're going to present it, and then sign saying just wait for training to start. Last week's stuff. Like, dude, this guy's like,
how you doing?
I didn't recognize him for a second. Yeah, but a college kid. So is that okay? Though, to say it to you, right?
As long as utility board's okay.
Yes. They requested it. No, I can go with you. We need to put that number on. It's 171. Going off right now. I'm talking about everyone. I don't feel so bad.
Hey.
Quick question for you. Are you intending to come over to the trailer?
Yep.
Okay. Sam's going to be there. I'm going to be at the office. We had a couple other meetings in the morning.
Okay.
So I was just going to call in. That's okay.
That's fine. Where do you want me to call in from? The trailer or come over to your office?
That's fine.
I'll go to the office.
Okay.
I'd rather be
Okay.
there.
Yeah. Sidebar.
sidebar.
Okay, yeah. Do you
So,
have time for that? Or do you want
yeah. And we talked to no.
I know you are. Know where you would rather be.
That's 10 o'clock.
Hey, Alyssa.
Where's
Are you here for?
is she going to give you an update today, tonight?
Yeah.
Give you an update.
Are you here for work here?
Okay. Ready? Hey, Richard. Are we live? Good evening, everyone. Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Lawrenceburg Board of Works meeting for November 19th, 2018, with a roll call, please.
Board Member Paul Seymour Jr.
Here.
Board Member Alan Calloway.
Here.
Police Chief Don Combs.
Here.
Fire Chief Johnny Tremaine.
Here.
EMS Director Bobby Mills.
Here.
City Attorney Del Weldon.
Here.
Utility Director Olin Clausen. President Kelly Milan.
Here.
And myself.
All right. Any announcements? I have none for this meeting.
This isn't really an announcement, but is the city thinking about any kind of a I don't know, parade or
Yes.
something? Okay.
In fact, you're stealing my thunder for a council meeting, Dave. No, I think what you're referring to, JR?
Yeah.
Yeah. What we're going to do, and I sent out some information to council, but if council so chooses tonight, we were going to, number one, he's coming in for the tree lighting on Sunday evening. So we were going to present him with an appreciation of some sort. But then we were going to maybe look at, and I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, but something, I think it's pretty significant for him as far as from the city. And we were going to sort of let that out of the bag on Sunday night. But we're just happy to have him come and join us. And, you know, it's pretty amazing in a small city as we got a world champion. We've got a Olympics champion. We've got Lauren Hill, of course, and among you know, other important people that have come out of this small little area, this small little city. No, must be something we have in the water. Now everybody got it right. Okay, I got it. Okay, and I didn't rehearse that. I'm sorry. I will pay for that one. I'm sorry. But that was a bad joke. I'm sorry. But anyway, no mooch. Point well taken. And we rest assured we are going to do what we think is a good thing for Mr. Todd. So, any other announcements? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the previous meeting.
Motion?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion will carry. Committee reports. Fire Chief Johnny Tremaine.
I have shared pictures of our confined space rescue class we took to everybody. Talked about it last meeting, and we had acquired a lot of pictures, so everybody should have a copy of that. We're just gearing up for the December 1st festivities coming down the road, the Winter Wonderland stuff. That'll be a big day for us. And then just wish everybody a safe Thanksgiving.
All righty. Police Chief Johnny Combs.
Thank you, Mayor. Just want to let the board know that I've been checking into some more secure for our facility, for our city court especially. We have people coming in there every single day. So I'm getting some prices on some items more secure for the city court itself, even though they go into the area where the window is and go into the court itself. So I'm looking into that, and I'll report back later what I come up with.
Good. All right. EMS Director Bobby Mills.
Yeah, Mayor, the board approved a air station here a month or so ago at the firehouse, and that's been installed.
Okay.
Johnny's been part of that, so.
Good.
We should have a safe way of filling up our O2 tanks now, portables.
Okay.
That's in, and thanks to you for approving that.
No problem.
That's all I have tonight.
All right, sir.
Thank you.
New business, Chief Tremaine, you got fire truck presentation?
Pass these out real quick. Sorry, I just got them finished up today. Or what I had them.
Oh, sure.
You want a copy again, Richard?
Thank you.
During our budget process, actually this has been going a couple years, but this year during our budget process, we asked to do a truck replacement on what our current, we call them heavy rescues, and what they are is equipment trucks that carry all of our rescue equipment. Well, we kind of, in 2013, we developed an engine to help carry all this stuff, and it's a rather large truck, and we've found out from springs breaking and things like that that water pumps and a lot of equipment don't go well on a truck that's used every day. So it was a concept truck we did in 2013, and what we're kind of going back to kind of in the future, we want to drop to a smaller engine. So in order to do that and still have the rescue equipment, you know, that goes our hazmat, our confined space, all that. We'd like to put it on a truck for that, which is a rescue truck. We had bought in 6. Chief Abner was involved in that along with me, and we still have that truck. And we bought that truck as a single cab, walk-in body in the back to where you get up in the back, and it had pump and water on it. Well, when you do a walk-in pump and water, you take up space. So during that time, it was a good concept. So try not to bore you too much. What we want to do now is just replace the 96 truck with a little bit bigger truck, but it does nothing but haul the equipment that we currently have. And I have this feeling we'll pretty much fill it up. But what we want to do is downsize the weight off our current truck we use every day, our engine, help lighten it up a little bit so we have a projected replacement of 2024 to 2025 to replace that engine. So when we do that, we want to drop to a smaller engine, less water, we'll have less equipment on it, and it also give us a long-term savings. For each time we purchase a new engine, it should give us a savings of at least $200,000. Because right now the truck we got now is, to replace its price, $620,000. So we could buy a smaller engine when we go to replace that for right around $3.5. So there's a significant savings there. But that entails us buying a truck, now to help in the future. So that's what I'm asking for, is to be able to put together a bid and go out to bid this truck and go ahead and get the process started. It wouldn't, if you guys did approve it, it wouldn't be till next year, late in the year, because there's some lead time on those. So and that's what I'm asking the board. Does anybody have any questions on?
No, right now you're just wanting to get the prices together to see what the actual cost would be.
Well, we got a budgeted number, and I did get some quote. I did have a couple quote prices, because we needed to make sure that what we budgeted was even going to be enough, and I think we're real good on that. What our budgeted money is. It's going to be less than, I'm positive it's going to be less than what we budgeted.
So what you're saying is you guys have this money?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, they've got it. They've got the money in their account.
Okay.
We went and put it into capital projects side of things, and that's what we talked about today, or this year at budget time for next year.
Okay.
Yeah. So tonight you want a motion to go forward
Approval to move forward to bid this thing out.
Okay.
I'll make a motion. He moves forward with it.
Okay. Can I get a second?
I second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion will carry.
Appreciate it.
All right, Mr. Weldon, I think the resolution is supposed to be on council, correct?
Yes, sir, Your Honor.
So we'll move that one to council. But how about the RFG engagement for the proposed park bond?
Thank you, Your Honor. If it pleases the Board of Works, you have in your packet a proposed contract engagement, terms of engagement with Reedy Financial Group to do the financial work to administer the bond for the Civic Park. And so the cost scenarios are broken down on the second page. $25,000 per bond issue if there are more than one bonds, and then $40,000 if it's just one bond. These are not to exceed numbers, and we have had discussions with them about limiting those costs as much as humanly possible. However, we feel that using Reedy and this is one vote, and then Barnes and Thornburg would do the legal. We feel like that's the best team for us in regard to the bond. They've done the preliminary work, and so we would just ask to engage them to carry out the rest of that process.
Any questions regarding the bond engagement letter for Reedy? Guys?
I'd like to move forward with the process.
All right, can I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion will carry. And then one that's not on your agenda, but is the the Barnes and Thornburg attorney engagement letter, right?
Yes, sir, Your Honor. So we would engage them under their terms. We just asked for a vote tonight, and then their engagement letter and terms and conditions for the legal work on the bond would come separately to the board.
All right. Any questions regarding that, guys?
No.
All right. I entertain a motion to approve Barnes and Thornburg as the legal entity on the bond going forward.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion will carry.
Thank you, Your Honor. And just for the board and also for council, there will be a cost of issuance study that will show all of the administrative costs for the bond, and you'll see all that and approve every step along the way.
Okay. I don't have any other new business tonight for Board of Works. You guys got anything? That's old business. Yeah. Old business. Mr. Clark is not here. Mario, are you presenting this change order, or do we need to table it?
We'd ask the table. Still
Okay.
not prepared yet.
All right. This is for the Industrial Drive project that's currently going on over there. There were some deducts and things had to come out of that too, so I don't know if that's all taken place yet.
We're still waiting for the contractor.
Okay. Are we done with the paving over there?
No.
Weather?
Started milling.
Okay. All right, so we'll table. I'll ask for if I could get can I get a motion to table that till next meeting, please?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion will carry. And then one that was from the last meeting that we should have made it to this meeting was the engineering study. Dell, you want to speak about that? Give them some specifics.
Yes, sir, Your Honor. If it pleases the Board of Public Works and Safety, there we have in the packets, it's actually in the council portion, but it's at the back of your packets. There's a proposed contract from Strand Associates as well as a proposed contract from ATC. The total not to exceed for Strand would be $26,500 and then ATC $2,025. This is proposed engineering work for the Waterview apartments and the surrounding areas, specifically the retaining wall and the areas that have been identified by IDEM as problem areas. We want to get them up there, have them take a look and see what can be done immediately, and then also kind of long-term, what opportunities are there for that property so that we can fix any pressing issues and then plan for the future. And Tony Ackles is here from Strand if you guys have questions.
Any questions regarding first, let's take this in two steps. I'd like to get a motion to approve the scope of services, the study from Strand first, not to exceed, it looks like $26,500.
Yes, sir, Your Honor.
Could I get a motion to accept that?
Motion.
Second?
I got questions.
Okay.
We don't own the property.
We do not. But we have a judgment in our favor. And that's a good question, Mr. Seymour. And so the best way to look at that property without getting too far down the road and into what is kind of still ongoing litigation is that we do have a judgment in favor of our foreclosure. We were able to foreclose on the loan and take that judgment against the property. So there are two issues really. One is just, okay, and that's been appealed, but it's still a standing judgment. It's enforceable. There's been no bond. Sometimes you can ask the court to stay that. So the judgment's valid. It's enforceable. And so we do have to start to move forward with that property. The other thing is that there are pressing needs. There are needs that these citizens have. You know, we annexed that property. Those are Lawrenceburg residents back there. And as we know, you know, every winter we have problems. When it rains, we have problems. We send our crews up there, even though that's kind of private property. We have utility issues. We have road issues. And in an effort to kind of take care of the folks that live there, it would be a good first step. The other thing is, IDEM has sanctioned them. They haven't started to assess fees, but their fees can be as much as $25,000 a day. Even though those would be rightfully assessed against the current owner, those fees would then run with the land. And so we would end up inheriting those penalties as well, hypothetically. Yep.
Can I ask for a work session to be educated on this matter before I vote, or right now I gotta vote no?
Of course.
But I don't. I can.
No, and
is this a matter of urgency?
Well, and that's the point. I guess you could have differing views on that. One thing, Mr. Seymour, that might be, if it's okay with you, a good idea is maybe you and Tony and Doug Garner and Tom Blondell maybe take a ride up there, and they could talk to you about the case and how it's progressing and what the next steps are, and then you guys could look at the property itself, and then anyone else would be welcome to attend. You're exactly right. That's the exact issue. How urgent is this? Should we do it now or should we wait? And that's a question for you guys to determine.
I think the we don't know if it's a thing that, you know, pressing matter needs to be done today or a year from now, because
I'd like
obviously there's problems there, but
I know the problems, but I'd just like to be educated on it. And what you said would be fine with me.
Okay.
And I wouldn't mind making a trip, but I'd rather make my vote once you guys show me and teach me what we're doing here.
Perfect. Then I just ask for a motion to table it, Your Honor. And
well, there's a motion on the floor, so I got to fail for a lack of second.
I'd like to go back for a second anyway. After reading this, am I to understand that there was a contractor that basically did not follow up on everything that they were supposed to be doing?
No. It may be just the scope of services may be just written that way. But no, it's just to get in, to have our engineers with Strand Associates and our environmental group with ATC get in and just take a look, assess the problems, you know, whatever they are, and then develop a solution. So as far as what happened in the past with the property, that wouldn't really be relevant to this portion.
Your Honor, if you recall, a few weeks ago we had some outages that, you know, affected quite a few people, and actually it's going back a couple months, and we discovered that the road that was supposed to be maintained by the owner hadn't been maintained, so we went ahead and expended funds to clear the road, gravel it, get back in, service the line, cut the trees out of there. And then I made you all aware that the landowner went back in and dumped big piles of dirt there to block us off from getting back in, and just kind of in your face kind of a thing. And so from our standpoint, we can still access a lot of that stuff on foot, but in times like this ice storm that we had and things like that, it could cause lengthy outages for our customers. It's an area that's hard to access. Some of the infrastructure that we have is very precariously perched over those apartments and stuff, and so there are a few things that from through my lens are pretty important things that need addressed because it affects a bunch of other people.
Right. Well, and I think that's the way we were looking at this too. You know, we got residents back there that they didn't ask for what's going on there. That's for sure. So we're trying to identify what needs to be done to make sure that they're safe. So what I'd like to do then, if we don't have a second for this motion, then it would fail for a lack of second. And then if you want to make a motion to table the engineer study till next meeting, Paul, until
well, I'd like for Mr. Weldon, and if Mr. Callaway here would like to look at it also. If you could set something up to his schedule, I would go.
Okay.
But you work that out between, he's on a light Tyler.
I think you guys would have to go separately.
Yeah, there's three of you.
It'd be a quorum otherwise, so.
Okay. All right.
But yeah, that can happen. So can I get a motion then to table?
I'd like to make a
The
motion
engineering
to
study?
table.
Okay. Second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion will carry. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All right, any other old business for Board of Works? You guys got anything? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the claims.
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion will carry. I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion will carry. All right, utility board as soon as people are sat down.
Looks good, Alan. Looks good.
What's up, buddy? Good.
I wish I knew that.
Yeah.
Oh, this is every month. He's got the original. Richard does. Do you have a copy? Mary, you can sign his copy, and that's totally fine.
Yes.
Did you like it when I said we're gonna squeeze your face? We're gonna squeeze your face. Yeah.
You guys are gonna do the
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Did you already sign? Did I already sign that?
That's some,
Yes.
Oh,
Why
I'm
don't you,
sorry.
why don't you
That's
sign
not
both
signed.
of them and you keep one, Richard? Yep, and he'll give one. He's from Reedy, Richard.
didn't like the bond, you know.
that's it. They wanted that.
No, you're good. Yeah. We're just gonna pass the reimbursement resolution. That's it. So you guys will be back on the 5th, I think.
I know you will.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you.
Take care.
Safe trip.
Miss a meeting and miss all kinds.
That's true, yeah, that's right.
All right. I'd like to call to order the Lawrenceburg Utility Board meeting for November the 19th, 2018, with a roll call, please.
Board Member Tony Abbott.
Here.
Board Member Aaron Cook.
Here.
Board Member Randy Abner.
Here.
Board Member Paul Seymour Jr.
Here.
City Attorney Del Weldon.
Here.
Utility Director Olin Clausen.
Present.
President Kelly Milan.
Here.
And myself.
Okay. All right. Any announcements?
Yes, Your Honor. I have we passed around just a really brief packet that we put together. Legal department put together. Zach actually has copies also, if anyone in the audience would like one. But I just want to take a minute to touch on the Utility Service Board meetings going forward. So starting in January, the Utility Service Board meetings will have their own night, and this is something that we voted to do at the last Utility Board meeting. And I've had some questions about what that means, and wanted to just cover that quickly. So the best way to do it is just kind of start from the beginning. What is the Utility Service Board? And so the Utility Service Board is just an extra entity or an additional entity created to manage the affairs of the Lawrenceburg Municipal Utilities. LMU is, of course, a department of the city of Lawrenceburg. And traditionally, and there's a chart that you'll see on the back, traditionally at the top of the local government are, of course, the citizens of Lawrenceburg, who elect the mayor, city council, the clerk, and the judge. And through the mayor and the Board of Public Works and Safety, the departments are managed. And a utility service board in Indiana is an entity created by statute that's a kind of a joint venture between the Board of Works and Safety and City Council to create a new entity to manage the utility. And so that was what the city of Lawrenceburg did in 1996. Mayor Gabbard passed in his administration passed an ordinance which is found in 32.085 of our local code. What I'll go through tonight are just our local ordinances and then some state statutes. So it's really easy, it's really simple, and everyone can kind of look it up and see it for themselves. So the board was created. The state statute, which you'll see on the third page of the pamphlet, it allows you to pick what it looks like. So we picked Part 2, which is a board consisting of the members of the municipal legislative body, which is council. So we decided, okay, in 1996, we're going to create this entity that will manage the utility. We'll make it be all the council members. And then the powers and responsibilities of both the board and the utility director are laid out also in state statute. Then in 2002, Mayor Tremaine, his administration passed what was titled, or what we see in our local code of ordinances, an agreement with the Board of Public Works and Safety. So the Board of Works and the Utility Service Board got together, passed a joint ordinance that did two things. One, it kind of shaped what the meetings would look like. So the mayor shall remain as presiding officer of the utility board, but shall not vote or have veto power. And the day-to-day operations of the utilities will be in the hands of the utility director. And then that local ordinance, which was originally an ordinance presented by Mayor Tremaine, goes on to lay out the ways that the utility director will be selected and hired. So this joint agreement, again, between the Board of Works and the Utility Board just kind of shows how the Utility Board fits in with the rest of the city. I think that's always been kind of the difficulty, is how does the Utility Board fit in with the rest of the city? And really, when we started to talk about a few months ago moving the Utility Board meetings to their own night, it was because you can even see it visually. You know, the members of the council, they sit down and they're the utility board, but then they don't stand up, they don't go anywhere, and all of a sudden they're council. So you're asked to wear two different hats kind of right in a row, and that's very difficult because you have two different jobs and they're very, very different. And so to give everyone their very best chance of being able to do the work, to understand what's being asked of them as a utility board, and to have as much time as they need to ask all the questions required to make these decisions, we decided to move it to its own night. So starting in January, it'll be the last Monday of every month will be the utility board meeting, and then you can have work sessions or executive sessions as needed. So the goals from everyone involved have always been efficiency, transparency, and responsibility. How can we do our jobs better? And as far as I can tell, no administration has ever sat down and said, what is the utility board? How is it different? Why is it different? And what are our what's our job that is a little bit different than our job as city councilmen? And to be fair, no one's ever really kind of explained that, and so what you're left with is, tonight we've got some proposed rate changes. We've got issues that everyone wants to learn about. The best thing about this council is that they are diligent beyond measure. They want to know everything that's going on. They want to know everything about it, and they make really great decisions because of their willingness to do that. And so moving into its own night gives us that opportunity. And so when you look at what is the Utility Service Board, what are the responsibilities and duties, it's very simply outlined in one statute for the board, one statute for the utility director. And so if you just look at 8-1.5-3-4, it outlines all the powers and responsibilities of a utility board. And it's enumerated, it's listed, it's simple and straightforward. Again, this stuff is all kind of laid out for us. And just to look through these powers of the board: to fix number and compensation of employees, adopt rules, determine eligibility of applicants, to establish lists, provide appointments of the all related to hiring the superintendent, subject to 36492, which is the executive appointment statute to appoint a superintendent, subject to the city attorney statute, hire attorneys. So that's one of the questions. Can the utility hire attorneys? Well, the answer is yes, but the longer answer is, well, how does that work? So the way that a utility would hire attorneys is that the superintendent would present to the board, hey, I need an attorney to give us an opinion on rates, or I need an attorney to give us an opinion on some pressing issue, and kind of weigh in and give you advice. So the way the statute breaks it down is that the superintendent would make that request of the board would then make that request of the city attorney, and then the city attorney would go and engage with outside counsel, and then the city attorney's office would supervise that outside counsel, pay their claims through our office, and you can do that when you need to do that. Same for hire professional or expert personnel. We have rate study experts here in attendance tonight to give us the advice we need. The only thing I would say about that is these the ability to hire professional services is something that is what we do that on a case-by-case basis. We do that when it's necessary, and sometimes it's very necessary, sometimes it's very helpful, but we have to be careful. We can't do it unless it's absolutely necessary, because it can be very expensive to have experts involved. So we do have the authority to do that as a board, submit a budget, recommend rates, etc. And then for the superintendent, the same thing. 8-1.5-38 outlines the powers and duties of the superintendent. And these are, again, the kind of guidelines for when you guys are sitting as the board of, as the utility service board. Then when when there's legislation that's to be presented, or rates, for example, then that has to be presented to city council. So even though you're the same people, you're sitting in different roles, you're wearing different hats, and it's important to understand just the difference. So this is a very kind of basic primer or explanation, but I thought it was important. Again, we've just never undertaken this exercise. The legal department's never had to kind of look at these statutes and weigh in on what this should look like, but I think it's a very positive exercise. Moving this meeting to its own night is going to dramatically increase our ability to do our jobs the way that I know that you guys want to. And so I think it's a great opportunity. That'll start in January.
May have to have a meeting before then, though, right? When do you guys have to get your bills paid and such?
Yeah, we'll have to have a meeting, plus we have a public meeting to discuss these rates and stuff.
Right.
That are,
well, and for like tonight, we can't approve claims because we didn't get them.
well, Richard and I talked about that. He was going to send a text out, but I'm fine with that too.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure you knew, so we didn't have to get them approved sometime soon.
Mayor, I just have one question about that.
Yes.
So, Dale, you're saying that the board can't hire a utility attorney without your approval?
The board can hire attorneys whenever it wants.
Okay.
So the way it works, and that's a good question, and it's confusing, but it's really not. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. So the city law department is an executive function. The mayor appoints the law department, creates the law department, just like HR, just like safety. And that department is by statute in charge of generally all the legal affairs of the city, so that when an individual board like the Utility Service Board wants an attorney to give an opinion on a specific issue, they can request that to the law department, to the city attorney, and then the city attorney will hire whatever attorneys you guys think will help make decisions. Or the utility director can make that request
So
to the board, and the board would request it to
Dale,
the
I've got a
city
question
attorney.
for you. I understand there's a statute or ordinance that points to an ordinance, and that ordinance is basically the legal department of the city giving permission, correct? So I'll call your attention to the minutes from last meeting. Mr. Seymour was going to make a motion to hire our own attorney. He asked you if that was necessary, and I'm paraphrasing. You said no. Director Clausen has statutory authority to use personal services. Greg Nigerbarger has been used and can continue to be used. No vote is needed. So, in my opinion, you gave us permission at that point.
No, we can hire Greg Nigerbarger or any attorney. You just have to do it through a process. So he can't be hired, no attorney can be hired to generally represent the city. They can be hired to represent the city on specific issues. So if there is a specific issue that an attorney or an engineer or an accountant would be needed for, then we can hire them. There's just
Well,
a
I think
process for
there's a
that.
difference between hire and employ.
No, I don't
And
know.
the law talks about hiring and employing. And I think the intent, talking with my utility service board members, the intent was to hire an attorney. We wanted to start taking on our own bills, cover our own expenses, and I think we felt the legal part of that was we wanted to move that to rate-based as well.
Well, the utility department is just a department of the city. So it still has the mayor, it still has the city council, it still has the board of works. Again, the utility service board is created as an additional layer of management, but everything else is still the same. It's the same as Parks Board, it's the same as Civil City. So the HR department, the safety department, the legal department, all still apply to the utility.
If it's the same as every other department, then why did you say that the mayor can't handle the union disputes with the utility employees?
Well, the problem with the union disputes is that the utility director handles the employment issues by statute for the utility. So if the utility director makes an employment decision by himself, then the mayor would traditionally be the one to do that. So that's the difference between having a board of works and then.
Well, the issue is, Aaron, that according to the contract,
Union contract.
the mayor is to hear all grievances.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it, but
and that's what I've been doing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with you dealing with the grievances and stuff, but Dell said before that you shouldn't have to deal with that because it's not a division of the city.
Well, no, I mean that's paraphrasing. Again, normally the mayor is the mayor's the executive branch. The board of works is established to oversee the departments and oversee the employment matters of the city, to negotiate the collective bargaining agreement, and to handle all things union. So in every other instance besides the utility, the mayor would be directly involved as a direct line supervision for an employment issue. However, the statute that lays out the powers of the utility director give him the authority to appoint and to discipline and dismiss his employees. So when that happens, because the line doesn't go up to the mayor, it goes up to the board, then it creates a different situation in terms of how you could handle an employment matter, because the mayor wasn't involved in that, although the mayor is the authority for the union and the authority for all other employment issues. Does that make sense? I mean, am I explaining that right?
It doesn't. It doesn't.
It doesn't
Because you've
because
got-
the contract should match what the
Yeah.
ordinance says.
I agree.
And it doesn't, so we got to deal with that, and we continue.
Yeah,
We'll just-
because you've got two horses over here and two horses over here, and you're supposed to come together and make two horses, but that's four horses. See
That's
what I
four
mean?
horses.
You've got
That
this
didn't
guy
make
with
any
this
sense.
much power. You've got this guy with this much power.
Yeah.
And you've got this guy with this much power, all right? And he has the right to discipline, fire, hire, whatever,
Right.
okay? But then when a grievance
Talk
comes
into the
about,
mic here, Mel. People can't hear.
then these horses go back to this horse, right?
What horse is that?
If I fire you, you're a lineman, and you get fired.
Yeah.
I'm utility director.
Right.
You file a grievance,
Right.
okay? Is it heard by me and then him, or do I settle it?
It's heard by the mayor, but the mayor wasn't involved in the. You're right.
That's the part that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Goes to the head donkey, the mayor.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. That's what I'm saying. And that, Aaron, that's what I was, or Mr. Greg, that's what I was trying to explain. It's not that it's unsolvable. It's just it creates a different situation.
I just don't understand because sometime within the past 2 months, you said that it should be totally separate, different clerk treasurer, different thing. Olin should run the meeting, and now it's if we want any kind of hire a lawyer or anything like that, we got to go through you. It's not separate; it's a division of the city. So I'm confused.
You're not saying we have to go through you, are because in here it says that the board hires the attorney.
The board can hire anyone they want. I mean, the utility is a department of the city of Lawrenceburg. Is that your question?
Mine was just, if we can hire an attorney.
Glad it
Yeah,
wasn't
without
mine.
anybody's permission, just the board's permission.
Yes, that's correct. You
Okay.
can hire anyone you want.
Okay.
And right now, we've got a utility that put a pretty good amount of money in the bank in 4 or 5 years. And the purpose of putting that money in the bank was so that we could take care of the things that we need to take care of. In doing that, he's proved to us he's actually starting a new utility, the fiber optics. With all what we have going on right now, my thought 2-3 weeks ago was we needed to separate. You guys got plenty of work to do. You both, I know you're both busy. My thought is if the utility can have the lawyer, a professional utility lawyer, I don't know that there's an added expense to that. I really am, I would be doubtful because we got to do what we got to do. We're paying these guys anyhow. But my question is I think this city would benefit for so much. It would free you guys up. We're a very busy town legally. I don't need to say no more than that. But this is something that we've got. This administration has got the utilities going in the right direction. We got a start of a new company here. I was hoping that we were going to separate and let the guy what he's been doing the best, get him a lawyer in here. That's the reason why I thought it would be a good idea to go to another meeting in a month and do his business. We could do it. None of the other distractions. We come in here and we get work done, and it's separated from everything. That's what I meant 2 weeks ago when I asked you about that. And when I left, I felt like, good, a nice peaceful meeting. That's the way we'll do it. Now we're not. In a way, I want to separate business-wise, but yeah, we do have some of the. I hope the utility still works with Civil City. I hope everything still works together that way, but I was hoping that this man would be able to run it the way he has been and keep doing good things.
Well, absolutely. So we're kind of talking about the same thing here. We are separating the meetings to allow for further explanation and further discussion. However, we can't take a department of the city out of the city. So if you're a department of the city, then I, as a city attorney, I am duty bound by law to supervise all the legal issues of the city. So yes, you can hire an attorney to give you advice on a case-by-case basis, issue by issue, or project by project, but any opinions they give or any work they do, I'm responsible for it. The utility board has a duty to provide monthly financial information to Richard. He can't get rid of that duty. That's the law. They have to provide annual budgets. They have to provide annual reporting. So Richard has a duty. The mayor has a duty. I have a duty, and we can all execute it together. And Paul, I agree with you. We can continue to be successful. I think we'll be more successful. Again, we want to be efficient. We want to be transparent. We want to be responsible. And I think that's what this project will accomplish by allowing us to have our own night for the meetings, allow us to look at all the information that we need to look at and execute all of our duties. Our duties are just written in the law. It's state statute. It's not a local ordinance. We don't have a choice.
So are you going to be at these meetings then?
Of course.
I have nothing against you. I'm just saying,
no.
So we're going to be paying double attorneys. That doesn't make sense, like redevelopment. Do you go to redevelopment meetings, all of them?
Yeah.
You do?
And that's why I say, and Paul, so to answer your question, it wouldn't make sense to have Greg or any attorney at all of the meetings, because if you have a general question, I'm the general attorney for the entire city. If we have a specific question, then we would call an attorney in to help us with that specific question. They would come to a meeting, they'd give us an opinion, we'd pay for that. It's double, 3 times the city attorney rate. That's why we have to be careful with how much we use experts, engineers like Tony out here, but you do both. There's a city attorney that is responsible for all the legal matters of the city, and then we engage professionals as needed, and that includes other attorneys. And then the statute for engaging other attorneys just says, if the board wants an attorney, direct me, tell me to hire whoever they want, and then I have to do it. But it has to go through my office. I have to monitor the work and be responsible for it.
I was misunderstood because I thought that basically that you were saying that someone from a utility was going to do the clerking. We were going to have a utility lawyer. You wasn't going to be there. I mean, you could still get all the records and everything, but you wasn't going to be there. We weren't going to be double paying attorneys. I don't even understand what the purpose is to moving it to another night. I mean, we've got hours to spare now. Why are we moving it to another night then? Or there's no time limit here.
No.
I don't understand what the purpose is of moving it then. We could talk about utility for 2 hours right now. I mean, I don't understand what the purpose is. I thought it was going to be totally separate.
And I've got one thing, Dell, that I want to mention. When all of these kinds of things were coming up and everybody knows what's happening in the press, you came to my office and told me that anything you could do for me. That if I would come over and be a department of the city, then you could help me, but otherwise you couldn't. So, no, that's what you said to me. So how am I supposed to feel when all these challenges and things arise and you tell me you can't help me?
Well, I didn't say that.
Exactly what you said.
Well, all right, let me get down to nutcracker.
All right, have you seen this?
Let's say we have an issue with pole placement.
Okay.
Okay, or placement on a pole with an outside company. And you, for instance, say, well, I don't know anything about that.
Right.
We'll have to get another attorney. Well, that delays the decision. Now, I'm not saying anything against you. If I had a legal issue, I would come to Dell.
Right.
But if I have a utility-specific issue, I would go to...
Then we go to Greg. Then we call Greg.
But it doesn't make any sense to have you sit up here and say, Greg isn't here. Have you say, well, I don't know anything about that. We'll have to wait till the next meeting.
But that's the way. So exactly. So that is the way it's structured. That's a great example. When we have the meetings, we are identifying the things we need to work on. So we have a utility meeting. The result of the meeting is, hey, we want to do this with the poles, let's say.
Okay.
And because really at the meetings, I'm not going to be giving legal opinions, just kind of off the cuff. So you would ask a question, I would say, I'll get you that answer, Mel. And if I didn't know, then I would call Greg, or you guys could direct me to call Greg or someone like Greg. So you do both, but the opposite wouldn't make sense to have someone, a specialist, an expert like Greg here just all the time, just in case we have a question. So that's why the law is structured that way, I guess.
I understand that, but with the utilities, there's always a question. There's a question about right-of-ways.
Let me ask this question.
Question about...
Dell, would it be okay for them to, if the utility board wants to hire Greg Nyberger as a full-time lawyer, they could do that, but it still has to go through your office. I mean, you're still responsible to monitor by statute.
But what is full-time mean? I don't think the law contemplates that. I think the law contemplates this is the project, this is the question, we hire an expert to do that. Full-time would just mean we'd pay them full-time, and I don't think we could do that.
No, because here we are tonight, we're going to look about a rate hike, and we want to pay 2 lawyers. That's just increasing our expenses.
Well, and Tony, that's a good point too, because you also have, so you have an attorney that Olin has hired to say, here's what the rate should be, here's why they should be that. Well, you should also then have a separate attorney to answer your questions about whether or not that's, the right thing to do, or whether you want to do that, whether they should be higher or lower. You should have access to a legal opinion that's separate from the utility director. So the utility director is the employee of the utility board. The board is really the one responsible for the decision making. So that's a good example.
The opinions of the professionals aren't my opinions. They're the opinions of the professionals. The rates that have been developed by professionals who understand the laws associated with rate making and what's appropriate and what's not. and all I do is review the numbers with myself and staff and provide input such as capital projects and things like that, but the opinions on whether or not the rate is sound are not my opinions. They're the opinions of the professionals.
Yeah, so this is just a general explanation of the utility board. I thought it was good because, obviously we had some confusion, and I wanted to clear that up.
Well, first confusion I have, if Mr. Nyberger, if he is an acting attorney for the utility board now, then shouldn't this utility board vote to hire him, because the superintendent doesn't have the power to hire a lawyer?
Yeah,
right or wrong?
Well, I looked into that, and I think that what we figured out was maybe that Mayor Carr authorized Greg. I didn't need you. I just was pointing to you. Maybe Mayor Carr authorized Greg to represent Olin.
So what are the?
Greg represents Olin, kind of on a project by project basis offline, so not at the meeting. So he's consulting with Olin on an as needed basis.
I'm going to make a motion that we hire Mr. Nyberger as our utility attorney.
Okay, what does that mean, though?
What does that mean? That means that he conducts utility business through your office.
But how many hours a week do you want to pay him?
Ever how long it takes.
What rate do you want to pay him?
I don't know what his rate is, but we'll
See,
find out.
but they're just hypothetical questions.
I'll second the motion.
Okay.
Okay, you got a motion on the floor.
I would like to see some kind of rate of pay first, real quick.
Well, how about Mr. Greg stand up here and talk to us a little bit here?
Happy to do
I've
that.
been listening.
First question is rate, right? Yeah. It's an important one. You got to control what it is. You got to control both the rate. You got to control the time. My normal rate's $4.90. That's obviously not what I've been charging. I had a discount negotiated. I think it's something shy of 15% of that. I think what I've been charging is $4.10 for matters that started a year and a half ago. I think it's $4.25 is the new rate as we move into 2019. And we've also, because we do have lawyers in my law firm that charge a lot more than I do, capped that rate at whatever I charge as the proposed rate. And what I had thought, and I wanted to answer your question, what I had understood is that Mr. Weldon had given permission to the board to hire Bingham to help them through these issues. You have 3 rate issues tonight. You have 2 pending pieces of litigation, and you're going to have some other issues to handle. I can't sit in the middle of that dispute. I can only tell you what I understand. And the statute is, I think, Del's, I'm not sure if he said it or not, but I mean, I know he gave you guys permission on the 5th, and then you guys get to do whatever you want with that permission. And then after that, it's kind of on you. But I'm happy to answer any questions you've got on rate, hours. I always try to give some sort of estimate, what I call the quarterly estimate system, have a discussion with you guys in executive session if we can about litigation, because we need to make sure we know where that's going.
So you said about a 15% discount?
About that, yeah.
Are you going to charge travel time?
I always discount my travel time. It takes, I think the last time I came here, like, for example, tonight, there will be no charge for travel time. Why? Because Mr. McGimpsey, the rate expert, is going to be here talking to you about travel time. So Nyberger is not going to bill for travel time. If I do bill for travel time, I always discount it. Now, you have to look at the bills, see what the rate is. We have billing people who discount it. And the reason we do that is because we negotiated that when we started.
What do you discount it to? Is it 50% of your regular
I think it
rate?
takes like 2 hours to get here, and I think I've been billing for about 2 hours total travel. So I think I've billed for an hour here and an hour home.
So that's at your regular rate?
At the regular rate.
So that's
it takes about
800 some dollars for you to drive here?
That's right. And if you want me to attend by phone, I'm happy to do it by phone. You want me to attend by Skype? I'll attend by Skype.
I'd like to ask one question to Dale here. What is your rate, Dale?
200. That's fixed by
So the decision, I think, is up to you guys. The board gets to do what the board wants to do. I think it's received permission to do certain things, and then it's up to you. I'm happy to answer any questions, try to help you out. And if you guys don't want us to help you with those issues, I understand that. You just tell me, and we'll politely, stand out.
You have been a lot of help. I think just let me give my opinion on this. I think we ought to keep Dale as our lawyer, and we can hire him as a special counsel for when we need him. I cannot see charging our ratepayers $800 and some for the man to drive down on every meeting and double the rate that our city lawyer charges us. Dale and him have worked together just fine in anything that we've needed for them to be done. So I don't see why anything has to be changed.
Well, and you've kind of answered both your guys' questions, because on the one hand, this is exactly why we need our own night, right? I mean, these issues do run long, and that's a good thing. And the other thing, Tony and Paul and Olin, honestly, when we have something as important as proposing a rate increase, this is what the room should look like. It should look like the mayor, the city attorney, the clerk treasurer, utility director, and we have experts in rate study. We have an expert attorney in utilities. We have engineers. We do have professionals when something demands it, when it's that important, or when there's a poll issue. That's never going to stop. That's always been the way it has always worked. We've always worked well in that system. That's how cities are set to run. It's just, it's good to kind of talk about it, because we never have, right? And so it's not, nothing is changing. It's just, I want everyone to understand, kind of how this works.
But you didn't say that a month ago. You said that Olin would be the chair. Someone from the utilities would be taking the clerk. I mean, you didn't say this was what it would look like within the past month when we talked about that.
Well, the law in Lawrenceburg is that the mayor has to chair the meeting.
Okay, so you were wrong before then when you said that.
If I said that, I was wrong.
Okay.
That was like in a general discussion. We
Yeah.
were talking about what we could do.
And how much is the Barnes and Thornburg charge per hour?
I don't know.
Do you know, Richard?
Not offhand.
You just mentioned this is the law in Lawrenceburg, but a half hour ago you said this was state statute, we had to do it.
Yeah, so there's a state statute for the powers of the board, state statute for the powers of the utility director, and then in 1996, all we did was we passed a local ordinance to create a utility service board. We elected one of the options under the state law, but then in 2002, Mayor Tremaine made it was a joint ordinance between the Board of Works and the Utility Service Board that said, okay, this is what the meetings will look like. The mayor will chair them, but the mayor doesn't vote. And then it laid out, here's how you hire a utility director. You do the search in a certain way.
Correct me if I'm wrong. And that was done because the special master was here in Lawrenceburg.
See, I don't know
directed
why.
that.
It does seem weird that law
That was
passed.
when the lawsuits were going back and forth, and the special
When I was
master
hired-
directed the board to be set up like this.
I was
Okay,
hired
I
in
didn't know that.
2002. I could talk to the mayor, but I had to go through the special master to make any decisions.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Well, and the reason I'd say that ordinance is strange is because that's already the law. The fact that we have a utility service board, it says, okay, normally a department would be the mayor, the Board of Works, and the departments, in terms of the executive. Now we have the mayor, the Board of Works, the utility board, which is jointly with council and the Board of Works, and they're saying, now you guys have this supervision of the utility. You hire a utility director to do the day-to-day. He reports up to you. You make these decisions. So that's kind of the difference. You really don't even need that 2002 ordinance because that's already the way it's set up. And the same with the clerk treasurer. The clerk treasurer, you guys as a utility board still have to give him monthly and annual financial reports. You have to give him the budget. Same with the city attorney, same with HR, same with safety. All those departments are involved with the utility the same way as any other department.
I'm not going to vote on this till next meeting until I can look into this. I mean, looking at all this is too much right now, but I don't know why no one up here knows how much Barnes and Thornburg charges when they've been here since I've been here, and I've been here for 7 years. I know they charge around $400 an hour, but I don't know why anybody else up here don't know that.
Well, we only use them for a special
I know we only use them for
project.
special projects, but I don't know why Dale's act like he don't know how much they make.
I really don't know.
I don't understand why Dale doesn't remember anything that happened in the past month when I remember, and he's the one that said it. Like, if I said that, you say about everything tonight. I mean, how come I can remember what you're saying, but you can't? It's advice you're giving us, and now you can't remember it.
Well, I'm looking at the minutes here. Mr. Seymour asks meeting move to a new night. Do we need a motion to let Mr. Clausen hire his attorney? Dell advised that Director Clausen has statutory authority to personal services. Greg Newbarger has been used and can be continued to use. No vote is needed. Paul asked if the burden of the for meetings would be added to the clerk treasurer if the Director Clausen would be able to appoint someone for those duties. Dell advised that it would be just like the redevelopment commission and handled by someone from that department. He added that Mr. Clausen could have Vicky take on that role just as Kelly Brookbank is used by the redevelopment commission. That's in the minutes.
Yeah, well, all of those things are true.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's the thing. That's why it's important to have this discussion so that, last meeting, you guys are asking me questions, I was answering them. I went back and created a report that would explain every part of this. It's not fair to you guys for me to just say, well, I'm going to explain bits and pieces. I want to explain the entire process, the entire structure, how it relates to the other departments. That's why this report was generated. That's why you have this report. But all those things are true. It's just the utility is still a department of the city, like any other department.
Well, we're going from
I don't think
2
we're
meetings a
disputing
month
that.
to 1. So that takes care of a little bit of it. We're getting expert utility advice, and I know that nowadays everybody specializes in certain aspects of it. With all we got going on, I just can't understand why anybody would object to having expert utility advice sitting here at every meeting.
I object to it because it costs too much. I'm not going to pay a guy $810 to drive Satch when we've got to answer 80% of our questions. The other part is when we use him.
How many times have we called Mr. Nybarger the last year? And that can be to either one of you guys.
Yeah,
I call him on very specific things.
Yeah.
Call him on issues that deal with pole attachment rates and stuff that we have ongoing with Cincinnati Bell, or not Cincinnati Bell, but CenturyLink. It's highly technical things. I call him on ordinances such as this when needed. Most of the day-to-day stuff, I don't call him on at all, actually. It's just stuff that's highly specialized in the utilities. And quite frankly, we've kind of had an understanding that I'd call him on those things, and I always have. And the times that it's no offense, but in the utility world, you have to kind of fight fire with fire. And I'll give you an example. When we got in the lawsuit with AEP, that lawsuit was for, several $1 million. We hired Greg, and the outcome of that was with AEP settled, favorable rate to the city, and a $400,000 cash payment to us. And so in the utility world, there's lots of zeros behind the arguments. And we've got a couple things tonight. You'll see when we get into it. Some of them, Mr. Mayor, we had people fly in and met with us and made certain comments about where they were going to get their, they were going to provide their resources for their business. It'd be hugely detrimental to the city. Hugely detrimental to the city. And for those kinds of things, I'm sorry, I don't know that anybody locally is going to provide us with the kind of coverage that we need to safeguard our residents.
Well, with what you've just said, it seems like our system we've had has worked well. We won that with a it worked well for us. Why do we need to change it?
Well,
why do we need to pay more?
I'll say this. I wasn't the one who suggested that we have this complete divorcement and our own attorney. That came out of a meeting that I wasn't a part of. There was an executive session that was held here. That was one of the things that came out that I was asked to look into, and so I did. I support that. I think that it's a good idea.
Oh, sorry.
I just want the politics out of utilities. 2 weeks ago, they were getting ready to put this man on administrative leave. Nobody sits back and recognizes all the good. I know it's a hard, it should be an easy sale, but in today's world of computers and talk and false statements, I just felt like, what I want done, and it's this administration, I think this could be a positive thing for all of us. We're smart enough to see that just give this guy, everybody says, hey, we need to get him under control. Yeah, well, what's that mean? No fiber optics? What's that mean? We don't want to make anything with the utilities? What's that mean? We don't want the utilities to be able to buy their own trucks? I don't get it. I think he's doing a good job, and I know he's got his heart and soul in all this, and I truly believe we need to take that next step. We need to, even if we need to change this, can this be changed?
Which one's that?
This was done by Mayor Gabbard and Mayor Tremaine. Why can't we have something here that says, Mayor Milan, this is how we're going to do things?
I think you might have to look that up with the special master, because that was a court settlement on how this was done. I don't know if we're allowed to change it.
You could host a referendum. You could do it through a referendum.
But Mr. Seymour, your remarks there, I don't know what that has anything to do with him hiring, or the board here hiring another lawyer from Indianapolis. What's that?
I just want
Every time he needs that lawyer from Indy, then he can have that lawyer from Indy. But we don't need him on a day-to-day basis. We don't need to be paying $800 to drive twice the amount of our regular lawyer.
Once a month to do meetings. We cut back from 2 times a month to once. He can deal with Dale when he needs to. I just feel like that man should be a part of every meeting and a part of everything. He is anyhow. I'd like for him to be here because we could ask him questions.
No, I disagree with that. It costs too much.
Well, I made a motion.
What question can you ask him that Dale cannot answer? And if Dale can answer it, then he will get the answer and save us a lot of money at the.
I made a motion.
What was your motion?
My motion was to hire a utility lawyer for the meetings. Okay. And for Mr. Clausen, I'd like to hire him. Now we can end that somehow, and we can have a vote on it. We've been talking now for 45 minutes, and we ain't got no damn where.
Greg, have you looked at the statute? I mean, do you know? I mean, if the explanation that we've given up here that.
Are you asking for my legal opinion?
Yeah.
My legal opinion is that as long as the Utility Service Board has permission from the city attorney, they can hire whatever counsel they feel necessary for the operations of the utility.
Okay.
So we have to get the permission of the city attorney? He just said we didn't.
If you don't already have it.
We had it last meeting, didn't we, Aaron?
I thought so, but he said we don't need it. We don't need it now.
Did we?
You didn't say the board can hire their own attorney?
The board can hire it.
He said we need your permission to hire it.
Both of those things are true.
It's in writing.
Well, we got the permission the last meeting, and this meeting I just made a motion. So let's see where it goes.
What did you get the permission for? What did you give permission for, Dale? To hire a lawyer for this board?
Well, we can't do that, but Aaron, to answer your question, if you say engage Greg to do this, then I have to do that.
My question was, does the board need your approval to hire a utility attorney? You said no, the board can do what they want. Now we can do what we want, but with your permission.
No, it's not permission. If you direct me to do it, then I have to do it. I think I discharge my duty by hiring Greg, and we work together. And if you want the attorney, I wouldn't say no to that.
Okay, let me change my motion. I'd like for Mr. Clausen to have permission to hire the attorney of his choice to run our meetings and do day-to-day utility business with the attorney of his choice, preferably a utility expert.
That
Mr. Seymour?
What you just said there, you just took away your how it's written in the I mean, you guys have
Help
that.
me out here.
You
Mr.
guys
Seymour,
have the authority to do that.
your Indianapolis attorney, Mr. Nieberger, I keep forgetting your name. Nyberger. And
Nyberger.
he's a heck of a nice guy, too. I'm not saying nothing bad about this man. But he just said, Mr. Seymour, he just told you, you have to have the city attorney's permission.
I think
A better way is to say it has to go through me. If you guys,
if you're going to employ a lawyer, and then the question will be for some other guy, some other time, does employ mean full-time? I believe the Utility Service Board by vote always has the authority to hire or engage a lawyer for various items.
Put you on a retainer or something like that. We can use you whenever we need you. If we want you down here every meeting, we could have you down here every meeting.
We don't need to pay a
or not.
retainer, I just,
well, and the only correction I would make is he can't run the meetings. The mayor has to run the meetings.
Well, I don't feel like I'm skipping permission. I know I got permission at the last meeting. It's in the minutes, it's on video, it's wherever you want to go look at it. I got permission.
Well, and you do anyway, because Dell has to do
help
whatever.
me out with a motion.
Dell
then.
has to do whatever you guys ask him to do anyway.
All right. Well, help me out with that motion then.
Well, then I think the motion you want to put is, you want to make a motion on behalf of the utility board.
Okay.
To hire, to engage Mr. Greg Nyberger as a utility attorney. How much you use him, I think, is up to the board. That makes sense? I think we're saying it the same way.
Okay, but will he be running our meeting? Will he be our lawyer at our meetings?
That's up to the board.
Well, I need to know that for a vote.
That's my motion. That's what you just said.
Your motion is to hire, on behalf of the utility board, to hire Mr. Greg Nyberger to be the to serve as utility service board attorney.
Okay.
Now, the way it's written, you can have him here as much as you want. I mean,
so basically, this motion is just going to continue on with what we've been doing.
Yeah, it's not any different
right now
than what we're already doing.
Right? Like, if the board want him here, he would come here anyway. And then when Olin wants to contact him, he's contacting him anyway.
The same
so it's
way
going to
it's
be
been happening,
okay.
Really.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, and I don't have a problem with that. Yeah, it's exactly, you're right. It's
I mean,
the same
I don't know.
I think I view it as
this is your guys'
Okay, so do we have to have a meeting to say, okay, we want him here for the next meeting?
No.
Basically, are we saying that if it's something critical issue, he'll be here, but if there's nothing on the agenda, he won't?
That's up to you guys to determine that when the agenda's made.
Is that this part of the motion?
Okay.
Is that part of the motion?
Correct?
I want the superintendent should be the one that decides whether the lawyer needs to be here or not.
Well, the superintendent does the agenda, so he should be able to know if it's a item that needs to be.
The superintendent should come to the board.
We talked about earlier with the landowner that piled the dirt on the property. Greg doesn't know anything about that because the only attorney I talked to is our city attorney. I'm smart enough to understand things that can squarely be answered by this office and things that are better suited for another.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, though, there was a person wanting information from utilities, and you called him to find out whether it was legal or not. And Dale could have answered that question instead of us paying him $450 for a phone call.
I made a phone call to Mr. Weldon. I did not get an answer. I had two people in the lobby demanding that they be let inside the building. Yeah, it was a little bit of a tense moment that needed an immediate answer, and I got one.
I still don't know the way this motion's going.
I don't
Okay, the motion is just going to give, you guys are going to utilize Mr. Nyberger as you've been doing, but you're making it a public motion, all right? So your motion is to utilize Greg Nyberger whenever the agenda requires it to be in attendance. Does that make sense?
I want my superintendent to have the tools he needs to run us an efficient utility department.
So based upon the agenda that the superintendent puts out, it'll determine what needs to happen at the meeting.
Yeah, I think that captures.
Make sense?
Okay. That's awful broad to me.
All right, well then,
Well,
that's
let's
the
have a
motion.
vote and see what happens.
Motion,
Let me just straighten it. Let me get it real straight here just for 1 second. Not real straight, but halfway straight. So on day-to-day operations, something comes up, we don't know about it because we're on our own jobs during the day. Olin can contact him or Dale, whichever one he sees fit. And then when we get the agendas for the utility board, if we see something that maybe no one else thinks is, critical, Dale don't know much about it, we can call Olin or call Mr. Nyberger and make sure he's at the meeting for that issue.
I would call Olin, it doesn't cost as much.
Okay.
How about this?
In here. Right.
How about if the superintendent needs to answer a question, he calls our board attorney, who will say, don't know that answer, call him.
And I think that's pretty much a way.
That's pretty much the way we've done it, and it's worked well.
Yeah. I think everybody's saying the same thing, which is terrific.
You guys will determine whether or not he's here at the meeting.
There's
All right.
5 different languages here.
So here's the motion. Last time, and then we're moving on. The motion is, Mr. Seymour, you're making this motion.
All right, I'm listening.
On behalf of the utility board, you are engaging Mr. Nyberger as a utility lawyer or a utility attorney, however you prefer, utility attorney to be utilized at the discretion of the board and based upon whatever the agenda has for that month.
Second.
Is that okay with you?
So moved.
Second?
Yeah, I did it 3 times.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Roll call, please.
Board Member Tony Abbott.
Nay.
Board Member Aaron Cook.
Yes.
Board Member Mel Davis.
Yes.
Board Member Randy Abner.
Yes.
Board Member Paul Seymour Jr.
Yes.
Okay. Passes 4-1.
We racked up $400 for Dale just talking about that.
No. That's
I'll discount that one. That's
okay. Good. That's $1,200. He's got to drive home.
All right. Okay. Are we done with announcements?
Yeah, I think so. I kind of
Okay.
blacked out for a minute. But
I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the previous meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion will carry. Committee reports?
the only thing I would mention again is we had some outages due to ice. Well, actually, we didn't lose power at all due to ice.
Thank goodness.
We turned power off at a couple locations so we could go in and trim trees safely. But our system, unlike some of the others around, we didn't have any customers lose power due to the ice. And I think some customers are out, for days in the REA. So I think that speaks to two things: the condition and servability of our system, and the fine men and women we have that are taking care of it, and that includes the city. We had limbs that were down on the roadways. Our guys got a hold of Brad, went up and helped pull trees out of the way for some of the customers that called us. So everybody worked really hard together, and I know there was people that were out for days. So I think everybody can appreciate having reliable power.
Very fortunate. Yes.
I agree with Mr. Clausen's assessment. I know our system is smaller than Duke's, but if you take mile per mile, if Duke would maintain their system, and that means tree trimming, the same as Lawrenceburg, they wouldn't have had to call contractors in and had people out for a week. You know, when you're utility director or a lineman, and I've been both, you think about the people that have young children, maybe newborns even, and you think about them being in the cold. That's why municipal systems are, in my opinion, the best concept that somebody ever came up with. With a investor-owned utility, the key word there is investor. they look at the bottom line. And the bottom line is, don't maintain your system very well and hope like heck you don't get an ice storm. But here...
That'd do for them, right?
Yeah. Here, the investors are these people right here.
I agree.
And their benefits are good service and reasonable rates. So I think that these people ought to be proud that their system has endured for over 100 years, I believe. Is that correct, Olin?
That's correct. 112 years.
And don't ever think that just because we're tiny, we don't give good service.
Yeah, 112 years, Mel, or 113 this
About
year.
as old as I am.
113
Pretty close.
this year.
Yeah.
You got a few on it.
I have no other committee reports, Your Honor.
All right. Any new business?
No, Your Honor.
Old business?
No, Your Honor.
Entertain a motion to...
Can I ask one question under you?
I'm sorry?
On that issue with the property owner blocking off the easement, what was the decision on that? Because that'd be horrible for them to block the easement, and then there's 5,000 people without power because of that one person.
For the Waterview Apartments?
Yeah.
Well, the line feeds, it affects more than just Waterview. It affects all of US 50 from Walker Substation, which is on Tate Street, all the way out to the end of the line, out to Walmart.
Yeah, so it's not just access. The utilities company has to get out there, but there's also erosion, there's mudslides, there's mud and snow and water that builds up, so it's a ton of different issues. And honestly, if we can get out ahead of it, we can turn those problems into opportunities. I think that path for the utility company can be something that can turn into a huge benefit for the city.
What if the property owner next time puts something that they can't get around? You know, I mean, that's what I'm saying. What rights does the utility have if the property owner says you're not coming on my property?
Well, we've got very specific rights. If you allow us to put a line in, and we don't, even if we don't have a dedicated easement, we've got a prescriptive easement.
Okay, what do you do? Who do you call about that if you can't?
I don't call anybody.
You call a company with a bulldozer and you go on through.
We brought equipment in. We paid to have all the obstacles moved, put gravel down so it was passable, and went in and did the work we needed to do, and then come back and found all this dirt and stuff back.
What if next time it's concrete? It's something you can't get around. What happens? I mean, who you call to?
I think the quickest answer is, and said I wasn't going to give opinions, but here I am. But I think on an emergency basis, our fire department, our emergency services can gain if there's a true emergency, and then the longer term fix would be if it's a violation of our code of our building code or some kind of ordinance violation. Then our building department, Carl, would enforce that. We'd enforce that through city court. So that's the shortest, the middle, and then the long term.
So it's emergency. The fire department and police is emergency.
I also think
they could clear it out.
If it poses a risk to life, and if you got people on oxygen and other things like that, you're putting those people at risk.
Well, I know some people that live in Waterview. They were actually on oxygen. They live there in Waterview.
Yeah, if you're knowingly interfering with the service of electricity, that's a crime.
Okay.
Now, was there a written agreement when we built that sub back there?
Well, there's not a sub back there, just a service line.
Service line, okay.
By the very essence that we're there serving, I would think that we had permission.
But, I mean, was it written? Because I spoke to the landowner trying to get him to let us go down there. And of course, he doesn't like the city very well. So he was not. So, but he said if there's a written agreement, and I always thought there was, show it to me and I'll let you back there.
I think, I've looked at so many things on that piece of property, and there's been so much kind of capitulation on what's what. I think we do have a utility easement back there.
There is a written agreement. And if I were in Olin's position, if somebody blocked my right-of-way, then I would call a company with a bulldozer and go on through.
Well, would you do one thing for me? Send his lawyer that written agreement saying that we're allowed to go back there to that line?
Yeah.
Is that way for the next time he can at least, he knows he's in the wrong for sure. Okay. There is a written agreement.
Fine.
Any other questions?
Nothing. No. That's it.
Okay, entertain a motion to approve the claims.
So move.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I'd like to call to order Lawrenceburg City Council meeting for November 19th, 2018. Everybody rise for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Mr. Richardson, can I get a roll call, please?
Councilperson Tony Abbott.
Here.
Councilperson Aaron Cook.
Here.
Councilperson Mel Davis.
Here.
Councilperson Randy Abner.
Here.
Councilperson Paul Seymour Jr.
Here.
Police Chief Don Combs.
Here.
Fire Chief Johnny Tremaine.
Here.
EMS Director Bobby Mills.
Here.
City Attorney Del Weldon.
Here.
Utility Director Olin Clausen.
Present.
Mayor Kelly Milan.
Here.
And myself.
Okay. Under announcements, board reports, streets, alleys, and curbs, Mr. Cook.
No report, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Finance, Mr. Abbott.
We're good.
Parks and playgrounds, Mr. Seymour.
Nothing.
Your Honor, I have an announcement.
Let me
change.
go one more.
Yeah.
One more guy, okay? Fire, Randy Abner.
No report, Mayor.
All right. Mr. Davis.
Thank you, sir. My announcement is that I will not seek a second term as councilperson. After 17 years serving Lawrenceburg, it's time to move on to something else for my wife, myself, and my wife. We might even be able to go to Illinois and visit that state. But I've enjoyed serving. And thank you all for allowing me to do that.
Thank you, Mel, for
I'd like to say one thing, Mel. I was here when you first came in, and it was a wild time for the city of Lawrenceburg.
It was.
You did one heck of a job with utilities bringing them up.
Thank you.
Mel, I thought you were going to tell us you were going to start training for the Olympics or something.
Well, you know, I've thought about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
For the Senior Olympics. Very senior.
Exactly. Okay. Well, thank you, Mel.
Do I get a present or something?
Sure, we'll get you.
Hey, I got $10 for my birthday from the city.
Okay. Okay, gift card is strong.
I got 20.
I knew Milan liked you better.
Don't tell him that.
Anything to aggravate.
Yeah, I've got a couple things. As everybody knows, Winter Wonderland's off and running, and the ice rink's been open with pretty good attendance, from what I've heard. It'll remain open until January 6th. This Saturday is Small Business Saturday down here in Lawrenceburg, the infamous cookie walk. We've warned the merchants to have plenty of cookies. They run out every stinking year. So we told them to make sure they have plenty of cookies. Please come down and support the local business. And then on Sunday, we got the tree lighting and the mayor's reception down by the event center. Mr. J.R. Todd will be here. We've got Cincinnati Brass Band's going to be in attendance and playing, and also Tiger Pizzazz. That afternoon, the Historical Society, I didn't want to fail to mention this, they are doing Christmas in the Country, and they're going to have events going on down at the Vance Towsey House, but also they're going to have Santa over at the cabin, they just recently got a grant to refurbish that cabin. I don't believe that work started yet, but they're going to have Santa, I believe, and Mrs. Claus in the cabin that afternoon from 2 to 4. And then December 1st, we've got the Santa Parade, and I believe, is that the weekend you guys are? The 15th. We have Connie's toy giveaway in the city. But please support the local events, and we look forward to seeing everybody down here. That's all I have. I entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the previous meeting.
Moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion will carry. Committee reports, Fire Chief Johnny Tremaine.
Nothing further to report.
All right, sir. Police Chief Don Combs.
Thank you, Mayor. I reported 2 weeks ago of our drug take back with the DEA at Kroger's, and I just wanted to give you the numbers, what was taken in of the old prescriptions. Lawrenceburg, we as a whole here took in 44 pounds. In the state of Indiana, throughout this whole program, they took in 8.9 tons of old prescriptions.
8.9 tons?
8.9 tons. And then nationwide, they took in 415 tons.
Okay.
So it's a really, really good program that they do. Plus, we are doing another with the Attorney General's office in December. I think it's December 5th, I believe, when we're doing one at Ivy Tech. So it's a really good program. And the only other thing that I have is we're still doing active shooter training with different organizations throughout our businesses.
Okay, good.
That's all I have.
All right. EMS Director Bobby Mills.
No report, Mayor.
All right, sir. New business, I've got one item, and that's in reference to the bond for the park. It will be, I believe, resolution number 8-2018.
Yes, sir.
What that resolution does is gives us an ability to look back 60 days from the time the resolution is passed to be able to collect on any monies that were spent on the park during that time to include into the bond proceeds. So, anything else I need to add to that?
No.
So you got resolution 8-2018. It's
Mayor.
a resolution of the Common Council of the City of Lawrenceburg establishing its intent to issue bonds to finance certain parks projects and declaring an intent to reimburse certain preliminary costs from the proceeds of such bonds. So I'd entertain them. Any questions on that? Yes.
Was that approved at the meeting? I think that was approved at the meeting, was it? Redevelopment meeting?
No, so good question, Randy. So we decided that it's best if council approves.
Then we're going to go back to the redevelopment, correct?
Oh, yeah, right. It's going to be a joint project with council and redevelopment. Yes, sir.
I want to make
you're
sure
correct.
we're aware of that because it was brought up.
Yeah, and that's why we tabled it then to
Okay.
bring it over to you guys. Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, sure.
If not, I'll entertain a motion then to approve resolution number 8-2018.
Moved.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion will carry. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
That's the only new business I have.
Your Honor, we've got 3 additional items for new business. We've got the first draft tonight of the proposed water rates, proposed sewer rates, and proposed electric rates. Tonight's just a vote to move them through to the next step for the public hearing. Nothing in them is binding. We talk about those things. Mr. McGimsey, do you want to take this down?
Sure. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, thank you very much. My name is Dave McGimsey. I'm a partner with Bingham Greenbaum Dahl, practicing in utilities. And tonight, really, it's just what Olin indicated. This is the first step. It's needed to get us to the next step where we can have a more substantive discussion on the actual rates, to have the public hearings, and then to ultimately adopt them so that the rates can be in effect when they need to be in effect on January 1st, 2019. We've got the rate experts here to talk about the individual specific utilities, electric, water, and sewer, and they can walk through the rate reports so that you can understand those, at least on a preliminary basis. Again, if you approve these ordinances, that doesn't mean that the rates go into effect. There's still more times. This is just to get us to the next step to continue the discussion.
I think that if you guys don't mind, if we could proceed, we'll do the electric first.
Sure.
And then we'll move the electric into the water. So, John?
Thank you. Good evening. My name is John Wolfram. I'm the founder and principal of Catalyst Consulting, LLC, a rate and regulatory consulting firm based in Louisville, Kentucky. I performed an electric cost of service study for Lawrenceburg Municipal Utilities over the course of the summer and fall, and there is one recommended rate change resulting from the electric cost of service study. I want to first emphasize that the proposed rates include no change to residential services rates. By that I mean the charges for residential service. There is no proposed change to those charges. The only proposed change to electric service rates are to a class that is called the Retail Power Plant Service Class, for which we are recommending a change that is based on better aligning the costs in that particular rate class to the operations and maintenance and purchase power expenses that are required to provide service to that class. So basically there is one customer in that class, and no changes to residential or commercial rates are proposed at this time. And that is it. It's a simple, from the electric cost of service study and rate standpoint, it's an individual rate change for a single class non-residential.
Who is that one customer?
The customer is Lightstone, formerly the AEP power plant, retail power plant. Other questions? Thank you very much.
So this would be ordinance number 19-2018.
Dale, can I say something real quick?
Yes, sir.
Is anybody going to vote on this tonight? We just got 20-something pages that we haven't even looked at to vote on.
We're not. We're just, it's my understanding, gentlemen, that we're just voting to move this to a public hearing at the second meeting in December, which is, I think
That's right. That's correct.
19th of December.
The
Second
17th,
council meeting.
Monday the 17th.
Okay.
Yeah, but we've only had 5 sentences from the previous guy, and we're being asked to vote on this already.
We're not voting to approve it.
I know, but still.
It's a necessary step so that we can actually talk about what's in the rate.
This is just the introduction. You're not voting to approve this on a final basis. There's still going to be a public hearing. There's still opportunity for discussion on the substance of what you've been presented. This is just to introduce the ordinance on first reading.
And in all these papers, there's only one change recommended. And all these
Just no, it's just on the electric.
That's what I'm saying. In all these papers, there's only one change recommended.
On the electric side, it's the change to one customer class.
Okay, and then what about the sewage?
Well, we'll get to the sewage, but the sewage I think is a across the board rate increase.
Okay, and the water.
Water is also across the board rate increase proposed.
So the public hearing, not all these require public hearing, but I think we're going to vote on all of them at the same time.
Right. For electric rate increases, you are not required to hold a public hearing. We always think it's good public policy to hold that public hearing, and Mr. Clausen has agreed, so we have proposed that we hold that public hearing on Monday, December 17th.
So next month, December, we're going to have utility meetings the same as we always have, during council night. The second meeting in December will be the 17th. That's when you guys would vote to approve or reject this or modify it. And then in the meantime, all of the board members are encouraged, all the councilmen are encouraged to ask questions of Owen or of Greg or of me, and any resources you need, we would get them for you so you can understand just what this means and what your vote will be on the 17th.
So I'm a little confused.
Yes, sir, Your Honor.
So what do we have to vote on anything tonight to move it forward to the public hearing?
We just recommend that you approve the ordinance on first reading tonight.
Why do we want to approve it now, and why can't we do it at our next meeting after we've asked our questions that want to be asked?
You'd have to suspend the rules then if you did that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not voting yes on anything.
But if you think back to executive sessions that we've had specific to this issue, okay, when we went through negotiations with AEP, we took a rate that was less than what the cost of service said that we should take. And we had a contract that was put in place that tied our hands, that didn't allow us to do anything with that rate. So we were under recovering, okay, to the detriment of the other rate payers. And then we couldn't make a change to that because they had a contract in place that locked it there. Well, the new company took over. They got rid of the contract and made all of us aware that they were going to quit buying power from us and buying it from PJM on the open market. So that goes into effect January 1. They think that it goes into effect. All that we've done is gone back and look at the rate and say, look, if you want to take the contract off, that's fine. But by doing that, we're going to set the rates to what the cost service says we should set them at to recovery. And I believe we're not even going the full way. We could go.
In those meetings, didn't you say that they had to buy their electric from us?
Well, Tony, the state law says that, yes.
Okay, so we're forcing them to buy it from us, plus we're going to raise their rates too.
But so right now, when they underpay, guess who overpays? The other rate classes.
Well, I'd like to see they're underpaid. I don't want to just be told they're underpaying. I'd like to see it. That's the questions I want before I vote on anything.
Well, and I don't think that's unfair. I mean, would it be okay to have a work session maybe the first or second week of December and then have the public meeting? So then you still have 2 meetings and you still are able to have 2 readings.
We could still have a work session, even moving it past this first stage. It just allows us to get things done before the first of the year.
Well, that's what I was asking. Could we still accomplish that without asking these guys to vote to approve this? I think that's what they're saying. They're uncomfortable with voting to approve the first reading, which is, I mean, then we could have a work session to do the first reading, and then the final approval would be on the 17th. I'm asking if that's okay.
If it's only for the for that issue that you're talking about with the Lightstone, I mean, it could be introduced on the 3rd, and even if it wasn't unanimous, then it could be passed on the 17th. It could still be done before the January 1st.
But the work session would be so that you guys can ask these kind of questions. I think that's the main thing, because right now everyone's kind of.
But what's the requirement to get it to the public hearing? The public hearing is the piece that needs to happen.
There's no requirement for a public hearing on the electric side. We always recommend the public hearing. I would strongly recommend, however, that you pass this ordinance on first reading. Doesn't mean that you'll support it in the end, but passing it on first reading gets the process started, and it's just it's good policy to get that process moving now so that you can have those work sessions, so you can really get to the substance.
There's nothing against you, but you would pass something forward where you don't even know what it is? Because I haven't got the chance to read this. I just got handed this tonight.
I understand you, but this is just the introduction. And when legislation goes through, which is what this is, you are relying on experts. Yes, you may, on the first reading, not fully know all the details, but by the time you get to the 3rd reading, you will know all the details and will have the opportunity to pass on that.
And I guess my question is there a way to satisfy both needs that I'm hearing? One is a need to take a further look at this, and the other is your need to meet your timelines. Could we have, instead of having this meeting and one more meeting, could we have 2 more meetings and still make it effective by January if it passes?
Yeah, but yes, you could.
Okay.
So, regardless, I would still recommend passing it on first reading tonight. You can do that for the electric. The water and sewer need to be passed on first reading tonight in order to hit the January 1st time.
So the sort of questions I have is they're not going to be answered in our public meeting. I want to know what you're going to charge now. Well, what was the charge before? I want both. What's the charge now? What's the charge you want to make it? It's like the water tap fees for the commercials and for the residential or different sizes. I want to know the differences in those.
And the rate consultant will get into there's a what the proposed rate is. So you will see that in black and white tonight.
Is that in these reports? It's not in these.
That's in the ordinance. Rate report that is issued. You will see that in black and white.
If we had that rate report before this meeting and we could read that, then I'd feel comfortable with voting on it.
Again, passing it on first reading does not mean you're passing it finally on 3rd reading. It's just a necessary step in order to get to the point where you can pass it and really take care of the city's interests to have these rates effective on January 1st, 2019.
That's your opinion. That may not be my opinion after I read it. It may not be of what I think is my citizens' interest.
I fully understand that, Council Member.
So what you're trying to say, I mean, it's got to be, 3 readings or whatever?
Yes,
it has to have 3 readings.
It will have the opportunity to be fully vetted by all of you.
Yeah.
And you will see present versus proposed in black and white tonight.
In hindsight, the work session probably should have happened before now.
Yeah, I don't think that's unfair for you guys to.
Guys, please remember that there's two things going on here that we need to keep in the back of our mind.
They're costing us $450 right now. When you stepped up there.
Well, it's not 450, but I know you're just kidding around. You and I get along really well.
Yes, we do.
What I want you guys to remember is on the water, and really it's the sewer side, you have to remember that we are being subjected to an ordinance, basically another ordinance by the sewer district that has flowed its way down to us. Because of the timing of that, it then takes times for these specialized folks to do their job. We're in a bit of a time crunch on that issue. And I want you guys to keep that in the back of your mind. And here's what I would tell you about the first reading is if you have questions, ask these consultants here, get your kind of understanding of where things are going and how, so that you can try to move forward with that first reading. You can always deal with the detailed issues later. It's just we're a little bit behind the time curve on the sewer side, which, these things all interplay in one way or the other. And the electric is really easy, I think, and you should be able to get an explanation from your consultant that's here to kind of tell you how that worked through if you wanted to do that. But it is important from a time standpoint because of the issues that you're facing. And that's why Mr. McGempsey is recommending that you pass it on the first reading.
Let's see, on our side, you said our questions will be answered. I don't even know what question I'm going to ask.
I understand.
So I look through everything. So our questions aren't answered, won't be answered tonight before we vote on anything.
Tony, I think this, if you pass the first reading, all that does is start the process. The third reading is when you can vote it up or down.
Will we have a work session before the public
meeting?
Yes,
absolutely.
A work session.
I make a motion that we pass the ordinance number 19, 2018 by title only. First reading.
Which one's 19?
Electricity.
The electric.
I thought that was 20.
I think you said 19.
Never mind.
Yes, sir, it's 19, sorry.
19.
Electric 19.
A motion on the floor is to,
Electric for sure 19.
Yep.
yes, sorry. The motion on the floor, Mel, is to pass the first reading of ordinance number 19-2018
By title only.
by title only. Second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Roll call?
Councilperson Tony Abbott.
Nay.
Councilperson Aaron Cook.
No.
Councilperson Mel Davis.
Aye.
Councilperson Randy Abner.
Yes.
Councilperson Paul Seymour Jr.
Yes.
Okay. Ordinance number 19-2018 passes by a 3-2 vote. To the next step. Next is the water.
Good thing.
I'm sorry?
With this electric, when we have our work session, I don't know if I know there's been legal ramifications dealing with this Lightstone. Do we have some kind of opinion on that, on raising their rates and what's going on?
Yep.
Yeah, and I'll have somebody from IMPA here for that as well.
All right.
Okay. Next ordinance is 20-2018. This is in regards to the water utility.
While he's passing the booklets out, the council asked that we look at moving the health benefits from the city side, the tax side, and the cell phones over to the utilities. And so in this rate study, you'll see that that's what we're trying to accomplish, is moving those costs, benefits, and cell phones over to the rate study. And there's a few other changes, John.
You're being handed John Scomp, and working here with Crow Chiswick, and I also have Jennifer Wilson and Craig Lotz with me as well. I think you have two reports in front of you. One of them is the water and one of them is sewer. At this point, I'm going to address the water report. So as I go through it, just kind of starting on page 1 there, the purpose of the report, I will tell you that the water report, it goes through and it does a few different things to try to calculate the rates that we're proposing on a going forward basis to be implemented in January. First of all, it looks at the overall sufficiency of the utilities revenues. How much revenue do we have coming in versus the expenditures we have going out for expenses, capital outlays, those type of things. We also looked at the meter equivalency factors that were being used to calculate the fire protection charges. There seemed to be a little bit of a fundamental problem with those charges, that they were pretty high on the low end and they needed to be scaled more to normal equivalency factors to be fair to all the customers. We also looked at the development of the minimum charges with the same thing. Some of our meter sizes did not have a minimum charge associated with that size, so we developed new minimum charges for the larger meter sizes. And then also we did look at tap fees as well. So as I go through the report, those are the areas I'll be covering and taking a look at how we address those things that were there. If you go to page 2, you see the balance sheet of the report, or the utility. And as you look at just a couple things I would note for you here. And by the way, there's phone numbers on page 1 there. If you have any questions about these, I'll go through and show you what's in the report and what we did. As you're reviewing, if you have questions, there's phone numbers on page 1 there. Feel free to call. We can answer those questions. But on the first thing I would note on page 1, the balance sheet, or page 2, the balance sheet, is that you have over $26 million of plant in the water utility. Just to kind of show you, there's been large investments in the utilities. These are big assets of the city. I know you know that intuitively. Just want to show you, monetarily wise, you can see what that is. That's $26 million has been invested to have the treatment plant and the infrastructure to deliver the water. The other thing on the balance sheet here that is significant is what is not on the balance sheet, and that is you don't find any long-term debt on the balance sheet. So the utility has invested quite a bit at this point in time, obviously, with the investment of other help as well and contributions. As you can see here, there is no debt on the utilities book, so puts you in very good financial stead. On page 3, we've given you some comparative income statements so you can see how the finances of the utilities have resulted in the last 3 years, or 2015, 16, and 17. 2017 was what we used as our test period to make adjustments and to help us know how we need to set rates on a going forward basis. I'll just tell you, revenues have remained pretty steady through the years. So we've kind of given you that information that as you have time, you can review that to see that revenues have been pretty steady. The expenses, we adjust those going forward, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But expenses always vary with the utility company because of consumption of the customers, and then also as different needs rise between the utilities, the expenses are just allocated differently between them. We have given you the detail of all the utility accounts that the utility has, starting on page 4 and going on into on page 4 is the expenses. They're the detail of each of the expense categories, so you can go through there and take a look at where the expenses have varied from year to year. So you've got a lot of detail here on the operating financials of the utility. And if you have any questions about this, obviously, we can go over that in a work session, look at that, and that's on pages 4 and 5. Page 6 is where we start making the adjustments to see if we do need to make some rate adjustments because our revenues aren't sufficient to handle the expenditures that we have and the things that we budget for, such as capital improvements. So on page 4 there, on page 6, you look at our December 31st, 2017. As I said, that's our test year. That's the calendar year historical financial information we used. The middle column there of numbers, we make adjustments to those to try to put together what we call a pro forma. In the utility industry, they call it pro forma numbers. It's actually kind of your budget going forward as to what, for these expense categories and different items, what do we need to budget for going forward. Now, what we've done for you, so you can see exactly what we've done, starting on page 7, we've detailed the adjustments that are shown in that middle set of numbers on page 6. So if you wonder how we're setting the budget or where the money's going or how we got to the rate increase, we've kind of shown you, starting on page 7, what adjustments we made to different areas. For example, adjustment number 1 Some of the fire protection revenues were included in the commercial sales numbers, metered commercial sales. So we've adjusted those down because really fire protection is kind of a separate revenue stream for the utility. So we pulled that number down. So we made an adjustment there to reset that number into a different category so we could see what it was, and especially as we're looking at those just individually. Adjustment 2, as you see what we've done there, we actually went back and recalculated based upon correct meter equivalency factors what the fire protection charges should be for these different connection sizes. And so we reset the revenue to show that going forward, if we reset it to where it's fundamentally fair between the different meter sizes, there will be a loss in revenue, but we'll also then be able to, with the rate increase, put those fire protection charges where they need to be. As meter equivalencies were set in the past, things got a little bit out of a line, and we needed to realign the fire protection charges. I will tell you that adjustment 3 on page 7 there is really an adjustment for salaries and wages, just not for 2018, but for 2019. But I will tell you, the fundamental thing is on adjustment 4 there, where we've moved the benefits from for those employees, moved them from the city paying for those to the utility paying for those. What that adjustment does on adjustment 4 is to say we're going to take back the benefits that the city had been paying for the utility, for the water utility folks, and we're going to move those back to where the water utility pays them themselves. And that's the fundamental thing, and as I get to the end here, you'll see that number matches up pretty closely as to why we need the rate increase. A small rate increase, we need to do that so that we can, the water utility can carry its own load of benefits. We're not going to have to rely on the city to pay part of the benefits for the employees, and I'll show you that in a little bit. That was a $190,000 adjustment there. Next couple pages, you'll see some other more minor adjustments where we're trying to get things back to where they need to be. So, for example, kind of doing the PERF and the retirement benefits and other taxes and those type of things on the next 2 pages. When you get to page 10, that's where we come back and say, here's what we've calculated based upon the things we did there on the income statement. You'll see our adjusted operation and maintenance expenses. So as you have time to go through the report, you'll see that $1.15 million of operating expenses, that's where we detailed that back on the adjusted income statement and showed you the different expense categories we had that related to those operation and maintenance expenses. Adjusted taxes as well. We do have to pay the taxes with the FICA and also the utility receipts tax. We've got those included. And then extensions and replacements. What we've been trying to do in the past, we want to continue doing with our rates in the future, is to set aside a certain portion of money so that we can fund capital improvements going forward. What the statute allows you to do is either use your depreciation expense, which is basically saying we know our assets are depreciating a certain amount each year, and we ought to at least fund what we're losing in value on the assets through their just natural depreciation. The statute allows you to do that, or you can put together a capital improvement plan which says for the next 3 to 5 years, these are the projects we need to fund, take an average of that, or you could go back and just look at historical. We've taken the thought here that we'll continue doing what we had in our prior rates, and that is trying to fund the depreciation expense, and say that we ought at least be funding our capital improvement plan at the level that we're naturally losing the value in the plant. You'll see what it comes down to is the third line from the bottom there. We have something we call revenue increase required. So we look at those things that we need to pay for with the expenses, the taxes, and the capital improvements. We compare them to our current revenue that we have coming in. And as I said, the revenue increase required here is about $220,000. You can see $190,000 of that was from moving the benefits back over so that we could pay our own way on those type of things and really get to where we're carrying ourselves. So the main reason for this adjustment we're looking at here is so that the utility can carry its own burden with the employees and their benefits. So that's what I would show you there is really significant to this, comparing it back to the adjustments we made. Talking about what was mentioned earlier is you'd like to see a schedule of the present rates compared to what they're proposed to change to. That's what you'll start to see on page 11. We have our present and proposed rates here, and I'll note a few things for you on this page. First of all, on the metered monthly rates, the very top of page 11, these are the rate blocks that your volume usage goes through to determine the rates. those have been increased across the board by the 15% that was shown there on page 10. What we did down the next section with the minimum monthly charge, we moved those across the board increases for the ones that currently had charges. You can see there that for the 5/8 through 3/4 inch meters through the 4 inch, there were already charges there in place. We did have to go back and develop then rates using meter equivalency factors to try to figure out what the minimum should be for the 6-inch through 16-inch meters. Utility did not have those rates in place at this point, so everybody got charged the 4-inch. We tried to come back and reset those where they should be to make it fundamentally fair to all customers. So across the board increase on most of it here with development of some factors. The fire protection charges, starting at the bottom of page 11, and really as you go on to page 12, as you see the present proposed rates there, those are where we went back in and reset some of the equivalency factors because there was just a fundamental problem with the way they were put together in that some of the lower sizes were paying less than an equivalent fire hydrant. And so we reset those. We developed these equivalency factors, which are commonly used in the utility industry. And we've reset the fire protection charges. And I'll show you one of the ones on page 11 there are the monthly fire protection charges that pay customers. The ones on page 12 are the private fire protection charges for individuals who have their own hydrants or had to put in a hydrant at their building, or maybe they have fire protection service connected to the building with either a 2 up to a 16-inch there. We've developed the rates there. To tell you how the proposal affects, I'll tell you the next page, page 13, then goes through and develops the tap fee that's being recommended for a 5/8 or 1-inch meter. 5/8 or 3/4 inch would be charged one charge. We have another charge been developed here working with utility personnel for a 1-inch. We're assuming that anything over that the ordinance would provide for, which is normal. Anything over 1 inch would be at cost, but not less than the 1-inch charge. And so you can see what's been developed there is exactly what it costs to do a tap, what it takes to connect someone to the utility system. And all the details given there of the personnel hours that are needed, the materials and the different equipment that's being used. And so what's being recommended is that we recover the cost for the tap that we are proposing. So you can see that's been developed there for the 5/8 and 3/4 and the 1-inch meter. Anything over the 1-inch size, the ordinance recommended it be done at cost, but not less than the 1-inch. So those are how those were developed. Getting to page 14, talking about what these changes recommended in this report will mean to your constituents on a monthly basis. So based on page 14, we've given you what we call typical bill analysis for a 5/8 or 3/4 inch meter. You'll see that what our minimum charges do, and the water has a minimum charge. So, and now the sewer will be different. It has a base charge that then volume is added to. The water utility works off of a minimum that you kind of run through the rate blocks, and if you don't hit the minimum, you pay the minimum. Both systems are designed to try to recover your cost of having them as a customer. But with the minimum, you'll see that 0 to 2,000 gallons per month all have the same charge currently of about $18.97, and will go up to $21.82. $2.85 increase is what's being proposed here. If you were to say, what does that mean? I would tell you that means that most of your fixed income people will be right in that range. If somebody says, well, I'm on fixed income, what's this mean to me? The direct answer is, well, it depends on how much water you use.
What's the normal average water use?
Normal would be the 5,000 gallon. If you look at the 5,000, it would go up $4.89 would be your average. So those are generally the two questions you get is, what does it mean to someone on fixed income? It's going to be in that 0 to 2,000, maybe 2,500. Average usage about 5,000. And I will tell you, and for your work sessions, for the public hearing, we'll have some rate comparisons for you. But what we're looking at there is a proposed rate of $37.50 for 5,000 gallons. That's very competitive in the state of Indiana at this point. So we'll bring those comparisons at later meetings. So be happy to answer any questions you have now, kind of walking you through it and letting you know what's in the report. Obviously, if you have time to digest it as you go forward, phone numbers there in the front that you can call, and we'd be happy to answer questions. I thought I'd at least kind of walk through this evening, give you an overview of what's in the report, how we got to some conclusions. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir.
Wait a minute, I have one question for you. Did you do a sewer rate study for the sewer board also?
You're going to have to listen to me in a second on that too. Yeah, I've got that one too.
Not for the sewer board. I mean for our sewer district.
Yes, we did a rate study for the sewer district.
And then they're going to increase it to the city of Lawrenceburg.
The charges to the when I go through the sewer, I'll explain that charges to the city of Lawrenceburg are going to increase for a lot of different reasons from the district. But I'll go through that.
But you did the study for both of them, the district and you did it for us.
Sure did. Yeah.
It's pretty cool. So this is ordinance number 20-2018.
Your Honor, yes, I would like to move that we approve the ordinance number 20-2018 for the first reading by title only.
All right, can I get a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Roll call, please.
Councilperson Tony Abbott.
Nay.
Councilperson Aaron Cook.
No.
Councilperson Randy Abner.
Yes.
Councilperson Paul Seymour Jr.
Yes.
That. Just let me write this down. Motion carries 3-2. We'll go to the next step. Okay, next would be sewer.
Correct, yes. A couple things to point out on the sewer. Number one, there's going to be some projects identified in here that will have costs associated with them, such as the lift station down near 50 and Walmart, Wilson Creek lift station. Also the Wilson Creek extension that we've talked about with Cindy Fort. And the redirection or the consolidation of 5 pumping plants up on top of the hill to better serve those areas with sewer. Now, with those come capital costs. We have options in here that we'll talk about bonding for those capital costs. We have numbers in here that would speak to using capital from MDF for those projects. What does that mean? It means that over a period of about 5 years, we would require money from MDF in lieu of bonding for those projects to complete those projects. If those projects, and they do add cost to this ordinance, if that's something that when we get into the work session you say, I'm not interested in those things, we can pull those off and the rates will be reflected in that. Whatever the percent increase is will be reflected in that. What is important to understand is that several months ago, South Dearborn Regional Sewer District did a rate study, and the rates were raised for South Dearborn Regional Sewer District. They were steadily losing money. We had a lot of volatility here. All the capital costs that had to be paid over there, we were all writing checks for that. So even though we had a sewer rate that you could see on paper, our rates were much higher than that because we were constantly writing checks to the sewer plant to make those capital calls. Those rates were passed. Greendale passed rates to move their rates up to recover enough to pay the bills at South Dearborn Regional Sewer District, as has Aurora. Whether or not we pass the sewer ordinance in any form, we will have new charges come to the utility starting January 1. So just keep that in mind, that even if we said no to everything, we're not going to raise rates at all, we will have a 15% increase or so from South Dearborn Regional Sewer District starting January 1. All 3 communities will.
If we do raise our sewer rates, but we're still going to get billed higher from the sewer district. So that kind of tells me we're like paying double. No,
the sewer plant treats sewage. Our costs take into account the collection of the sewer and sending it to the plant. There's two costs. There's a collection system cost and there's a treatment cost. The rates that we're paying to South Dearborn Regional Sewer District are just for the treatment of the effluent. It's not for the collection of it.
But you pay that rate.
We pay that.
Me as a customer, that rate is in my bill.
Yeah, that rate is in your bill. When we collect, we take into account the treatment costs at South Dearborn Regional Sewer District and the collection cost to maintain the system. And that's what makes the rate in total. So when they raise their rates down there, if we do nothing here, and I'll remind everybody, we made $65,000 last year in the sewer department, we will immediately be operating at more of a deficit.
Just check my memory here. Months ago, has this got anything to do with the county participating in any one of these projects?
So we talked about, and so one of the programs in here for a capital project is a joint project that we have talked about with the county to provide sewer to Outer Drive and to Briarwood. So currently the county has about 400 homes that have failing or failed septic systems up on Briarwood, Outer Drive, Shangri-La, in those areas. And so this plan would be us working in tandem with the county, of which they would provide financing, money, to help sewer those areas. In turn, we would also be able to sewer some additional places. The development on Scenic Drive, the redirect of the sewers, the lift stations up on Meyer and Hardwood Ridge, those areas. So that project takes into account that county project as well. Again, we could talk about in the work session. If you don't want to fund those things, we pull them out, but that's the objective.
Again, I think the second report you have is the sewer report, and I'll kind of walk through it in the same manner. As you get to page 1, the purpose of the report, we did a few more things on the sewer. Again, the phone number at the bottom if you have any questions, but we did look at the sufficiency of the overall revenues for the utility. And then there are 2 scenarios with the report, and we'll go through those list of capital projects that Olin talked about and the different funding. We've got 2 scenarios in here. One is funding them through the MDF funds, or the second one is to fund them through a bond issue, where then the repayment of that bond issue would come from the utility revenues.
Are we going to revisit all of this in our work session?
Yeah.
Yes.
If that's what you want to do, yeah.
We're going to have a work session. We can go through all this, and then we can still make the NFL game. Yeah.
Your pleasure, if you'd like me to walk through it now.
Everything that we've talked about in here, like I said, if you guys do want to do a full rejection of everything that's been proposed tonight, you can easily do that. We just would like to get to that next step so that we can talk about these things before the deadlines come upon us January 1.
We can do that still if we have a work session. We can vote on it that night and still be on track for time.
Yeah, I think the important thing is to move past step 1. It's no obligation. Nobody's going to force you to vote in favor of it the next step. But it gives us the opportunity to get the clock ticking so that if we do get in here and we all agree on the rate structures, we don't miss deadlines.
And I don't want to be presumptuous, but I got a feeling that if we go through this report tonight or not, it might be a 3-2 vote.
It could be.
But
well, we got to wait
it's
for
up
Mel.
to you guys. I mean, we're going to hear it again, is what I'm saying.
Exactly, yep.
You have to wait for Mel, or it's going to be 2-2.
Is it possible to get one of these for the electric utility too, a current one?
It is.
Good idea, yeah.
And we need to schedule an executive session to talk about the legal portions of that whole inner working.
Okay.
And we can have counsel here from IMPA to talk about that. That's a much bigger issue than just trying to correct rates.
But we can get a nice
yes
workbook like this.
John's frantically making notes.
For electric? Maybe prior to the work session so they can review it, and is that possible? Okay. All right. What's your pleasure? You wanna go through the report tonight?
I agree with you.
I mean,
I got the book. They did a very good job on it. We'll look at it.
all right, then I'll entertain a motion to approve the first reading of ordinance number 21-2018 tonight.
Your Honor, I would like to make a motion to pass ordinance number 2118 for the first reading by title only.
All right, ordinance number 21-2018 has a motion. Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Roll call, please.
Councilperson Tony Abbott.
Nay.
Councilperson Aaron Cook.
No.
Councilperson Randy Abner.
Yes.
Councilperson Paul Seymour Jr.
Yes.
Okay, a motion will pass 3-2 to go to the next step. All right, any other new business?
Not for me. No, sir.
Just to clarify, were there two versions of the sewer ordinance, or did I just get an extra copy?
No, there were two versions of it, but it's probably immaterial.
Yes, it is immaterial because you can adjust the rates after the public hearing. You can amend it.
We can just mark one of them, and that'll be okay.
That'd be fine because one of them is the MDF funded and one of them is the bond funded.
Okay. So you just mark one of them 21.
I'll put them both together. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we need to schedule a work session and get have Cindy for your talk about.
Well, I marked this one.
Yeah,
The reimbursement.
All right. If there's no other new business, old business, the engineering study was on the Board of Works. Lissa, would you like to take the podium, just give us a quick update on the Civic Park? Please.
Thank you. Lissa Ruhlman with Maxwell Construction. Just want to give a report on the Lawrenceburg Civic Park overall. The project's going well. We do need to have a little drier and warmer weather. So the preliminary, all the utility work leading up to the park is completed. Row is finishing the paving next week. They started last week, and they'll be back again next week. The specialty concrete is moving forward. We did lose 4 days due to the weather for this, but there's some warmer temperatures coming. So we're going to continue to pour and keep moving forward with that. We have another pour tomorrow scheduled. Underground utilities on the south side of the park are beginning. And we've got the limestone coping going in place on the restroom and on the stage steps shortly. So that's kind of where we are.
If you get a chance, stop over and take a look. I mean, they're making some pretty good progress.
Yeah, it's starting to take shape.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. The raised.
Your steel for stage.
Steel for the stage. The shop drawings are coming back for review to the architect engineers. So after Thanksgiving, they'll be back in the engineer's hands for review. And then it actually pushes out the fabrication and install dates into February. Still think we're going to be okay, but we're going to be pushing really hard in the spring.
Need a month I'd asked the other day, need about a month for sod.
We do, yeah. Once the sod is installed.
Once it gets installed.
Yeah, it's best to stay off the sod for 30 days so that it has time to set up, and that way when you have big traffic at your events, then it's in good shape. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Any questions?
Yeah.
Thanks, Lissa.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
I have no other old business. Yes, sir.
Swimming pool. At the last meeting, I passed out drawings for your review, for feedback, the splash pad. I'm sure everybody took a look at them and
Studied them.
studied them hard. Yeah. Right now we're at 60% completion on that drawing, moving to 90%. So with your permission, we'll keep going.
Any questions regarding that, guys?
I'm counting on the staff and the help at the pool. I've never been in there. I don't know what they need. I've only been in there a couple times.
We have Dee here tonight. I think she had to leave the last meeting. If there's any questions for the pool manager.
As long as she stays under that 900,000 like Tony promised me before. Before I went on my fishing trip.
900,000.
You remember
it was 1.1.
You remember that, Kelly?
No, he said 700, and you gave him a $200,
I go
$200,000
to Bedford to go fishing, and he
It's cold
spends
out there. I don't feel like sleeping in the
$300,000.
doghouse. I said 1.1.
I remember 700,000 with the 200,000 contingency. That's
I'll make
all I
a motion
remember.
to that, Your Honor.
Tony, you
if
did
want
ask me a
to.
question. I gave you bad information
Your Honor, I'll
on
make a
the
motion to
transfer
that if you
station
want
for
to.
the
Yeah,
slide
you go right
for the
ahead.
ADA.
Yeah.
It was $4,500 additional.
Additional?
It was not in that 1.1.
Okay, so we're up to 1.1. There's a second slide for handicapped kids or special needs. I'm sorry, whatever. So it's going to be 40.
4,500. There's what they call a transfer station. That's to be able to get out of the chair.